words of Martin Luther King Jr. God is able to make a way out of no way and transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows. This is our hope for becoming better men and women. This is our mandate for seeking to make a better world. Good morning. Welcome to United Church of Christ in Boxborough. I'm Reverend Cindy Worthington Berry, and no matter who you are or where you are on the journey, you are welcome here. We are fully in Zoom to worship phase right now, as COVID numbers are a bit high in our area and particularly have hit lots of our lay leaders' prayers for healing and well-being. But whether you are watching us on Zoom or Facebook Live or listening on the phone or watching the recording afterwards on our YouTube channel, we are so glad to be connected. For more information about life at UCC Boxborough, we invite you to visit our website where you can sign up for our weekly email newsletter and learn about everything going on at UCC Boxborough, because even at a time where we're not worshiping in person together in the sanctuary, there is still so much going on in the life of this congregation. We will be worshiping online through at least the end of January. More details for that will be coming up in the flash. And this morning we have Zoom Deacon Art hosting us on Zoom. So greet Art in the chat box, and you'll be able to add your joys and concerns later in the worship service in that chat box. And Art, I think, has already put a link to the digital bulletin. That's helpful, particularly for the call to worship and for announcements and things like that. When we get to the hymns, the words for those will be on the screen. You'll all be muted throughout the service, but then afterwards we can unmute and chat together and have breakout rooms and catch up and share a little bit about our weeks. Thank you for joining us today from wherever you are. We know that it is God's Spirit that unites us, and God's Spirit isn't limited to any four walls or any particular address or even any particular hour. So in this time together, we feel our connections. And to help us feel that connection, I just encourage you to be grounded where you are. Make yourself as comfortable as you can. If you have a candle, this is a good time to light it. The candles on the altar are lit already, a reminder of the Spirit that is with us. And be aware of the breath in your body, the breath that is Ruach, God's Spirit that blows through us all. And as the sound of the bowl fades away, do everything you can to bring yourself fully into this time and place.
Good morning, I'm Steve. Please join me in the call to worship printed in your bulletin. Reverend Cindy will lead you in the parts marked all. Come to this place of welcome and worship.
We come seeking community.
You are welcome here.
We come bringing joys and sorrows.
You are welcome here.
We come seeking insight.
You are welcome here.
We come bringing our life stories.
You are welcome here.
We come seeking God.
Let us worship together. Our gathering hymn this morning is Over My Head. We'll all be muted, but singing at home with our virtual choir.
Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. Over my head, I hear music in the air. see Jesus in the air. Over my head, I see Jesus in the air. Over my head, I see Jesus in the air. There must be a God somewhere.
Our centering prayer this morning is adapted from a prayer by Christine Sign, written to mark the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. We begin with a little bit of silence, a chance to center ourselves, open our hearts, and listen for God's voice. Let us pray. God of compassion and justice, may we dream of a world made new, where together we shout for justice and as one fight against oppression. May we dream of a world made new, where together we seek your righteousness and as one we sing your praise. May we dream of a world made new, where together we climb your mountain, and as one, we enter your promised land. May we dream of a world made new, where together we proclaim the good news of your kingdom, and as one, we enjoy its peace and abundance and love. May we dream of a world made new, the world we are called to create by Jesus, who taught us to pray, saying, Creator God, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Martin Luther King Jr. said, people fail to get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. And they don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other. In a time when we are separated by distance, it is ever more critical that we find ways to communicate with each other. And so this morning, even muted from home, we call out to each other with a blessing of God's peace. We say together, God's peace be with you. Our song of celebration for this season is Jesus, the Light of the World. We can all sing along at home.
Hark the herald angels sing, Jesus, the light of the world. Glory to the Christ child bring, Jesus, the light of the world. We will follow the light, beautiful light. Come where the dewdrops of mercy are bright. Shine all around us by day or by night. Jesus, the light of the world.
Our lectionary reading this morning is from Paul's letter to the church at Corinth. This is the same letter that the famous love passage comes from. Corinth was a lively church dealing with lots of conflicts. Paul had founded the church, so he was very much invested in their health. In his letters, he encouraged them to find unity in following Jesus, in focusing on the Spirit of Christ that dwelt in them as a community. Today's passage, in part, is understood as Paul trying to settle a debate about speaking in tongues. It seemed those who could speak in tongues were valued over those who couldn't, and Paul wanted to get rid of such comparisons. Here are these words from 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 1 through 11. Paul writes, "Now concerning spiritual gifts, brothers and sisters, I do not want you to be uninformed. You know that when you were pagans, you were enticed and led astray to idols that could not speak. Therefore, I want you to understand that no one speaking by the Spirit of God ever says, 'Let Jesus be cursed,' and no one can say, 'Jesus is Lord,' except by the Holy Spirit. Now there are a variety of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are varieties of services, but the same Lord. And there are varieties of activities, but it's the same God who activates them in everyone. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. To one is given through the Spirit the utterance of wisdom, and to another the utterance of knowledge according to the same Spirit. To another, faith by the same Spirit. To another, gifts of healing by that one Spirit. To another, working of miracles. To another, prophecy. To another, discernment of spirits. And to another, various kinds of tongues. To another, interpretations of tongues. All these are activated by the same Spirit, who allots to each one individually, just as the Spirit chooses. These are our sacred letters. May we have the vision and the wisdom to live them."
Amen. Thank you, Steve. Children of all ages are invited to lean in for Word for All Ages. So once before COVID, there was a church meeting that was very heated, lots of disagreements. It started because the pastor made a comment. Well, clearly I am the most important part of the church because I talk so much in worship. As you can imagine, that brought up lots of feelings from everyone else at the meeting. A choir member piped up and said, "Sure, but people have clapped more often after we sing than after you preach. We are the most important part of the church." The rest of the choir nodded until a deacon said, "Yes, but if we didn't unlock the church and turn on the heat, light the candles, and turn on the sound system, you couldn't meet in the first place. We are the most important part of the church." Everyone's voices were getting louder when the Sunday school teacher said, "But you know, children are the future of the church. So if we aren't there to nurture the children and help them love the church, then the church will die. So we are the most important part of the church." And then someone on the fellowship team in charge of coffee hour said, "It is quite clear that we are the most important part of the church. You know how I know? Well, we're out of coffee and cookies." And everyone yelled, "Meeting adjourned," and went home. Since COVID, we've missed coffee hour and Sunday school and the choir and meeting together in the building so much of the time. And goodness knows you have heard way too much of my voice. Meanwhile, we've discovered new gifts like screen sharing on Zoom and recording ourselves singing and praying through a chat box. All of these gifts, all of them, are precious and valued, signs of God's Spirit, working together to bring God's love to the world. May we see the value of the gifts all around us, in the church, in our families, in our neighborhoods, in ourselves, and in our world. Amen. worship service this morning includes quotes and prayers from both Martin Luther King Jr. and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Of course, we mark MLK's birthday this weekend. Yesterday was the 93rd anniversary of his birth. Tutu, who died last month, was one who proclaimed a nonviolent resistance to apartheid, similar to King's work in the US. These men are often compared and certainly have lots in common, both brilliant theologians who put their lives on the line for the sake of God's most vulnerable children. And of course, they are different people who lived in different times. And as Paul would put it, they had different gifts. Tutu championed the ordination of women in his denomination and advocated for gay rights, which is still a challenging view in South Africa. So we don't want to collapse them in any way, but both King and Tutu have a way with words that open our hearts and shape our minds. Tutu collaborated with his daughter, the Reverend Mpho Tutu, on a number of projects, including the Book of Forgiving. Forgiveness was a critical theme for Tutu as he led his country's Truth and Reconciliation Commission after the fall of apartheid. He wanted to try to figure out how his country could come back together. So our second reading this morning is from the beginning of that book called The Prayer Before the Prayer. Hear these words. I want to be willing to let go, to forgive, but dare not ask for the will to forgive in case you give it to me, God, and I am not yet ready. I am not yet ready for my heart to soften. I am not yet ready to be vulnerable again, not yet ready to see that there is humanity in my tormentor's eyes, or that the one who hurt me may also have cried. I am not yet ready for the journey. I am not yet interested in the path. I am at the prayer before the prayer of forgiveness. Grant me the will to want to forgive. Grant it to me, not yet, but soon. Can I even form the words? Forgive me? Dare I even look? Do I dare to see the hurt I have caused? I can glimpse all the shattered pieces of that fragile thing, that soul trying to rise on the broken wings of hope, but only out of the corner of my eye. I am afraid of it. And if I am afraid to see, how can I not be afraid to say, forgive me? Is there a place where we can meet, you and me? The place in the middle where we straddle the lines, where you are right and I am right too. And both of us are wrong and wronged. Can we meet there and look for the place where the path begins, the path that ends when we forgive? Amen. Let us pray. Oh God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. O God of love, who is the rock on which we stand. Amen. So in the Church of Corinth, there was debate about the best and right way to be a follower of Jesus. The congregation wanted to rank and rate each other according to their gifts. Someone who can speak in tongues is obviously way more spiritual than someone whose gift is soothing prayer. This hierarchy of gifts was causing all sorts of conflict in Corinth. People were arguing about whether it was better to heal or prophesy, have faith or work miracles. So not only were feelings getting hurt, but some gifts were in danger of being lost to the community if nobody valued them. Paul wanted the church to cut it out. He wanted them to find unity in their journey on the way. But at the same time, he didn't want to lose the rich diversity of all those spiritual gifts. He didn't want conformity. He saw each of the gifts as a beautiful gift from God and wanted the folks at Corinth to see it the same way. So in this morning's passage, he tries to drill into them that all these gifts come from the same God and each should be valued as such. Now, I don't know if the church at Corinth ever got a handle on that. We don't have evidence of any resolution. But 2,000 years later, it surely is something the church still struggles with. I read about other clergy and wonder, like, what's wrong with me? Why haven't I written a book or started a podcast? And then parishioners say things to me like, I know I don't do enough at UCC Boxborough, or I'm not as spiritual as he is, or I'm not as deep as she is, or I'm not as organized as they are. Worst of all, when someone says, I don't sing well enough to join in on the hymns, anybody who wants to can join in on hymns. There are all sorts of different gifts, and they all come from God, and they are all needed for us to be the body of Christ, God's church in the world. I'm always in awe of the gifts of this congregation when I look at the rich variety at the silent auction. We have amazing bakers and knitters and quilters and woodworkers and ornament makers. And I am, to be honest, jealous of your skill. But I know that even the abundance on the silent auction website does not capture the gifts of this congregation. Some of you have the gift of deep and caring listening, able to make someone feel like they are the only person in the world. Others have the gift of practicing gratitude, marking each day with the sense of the blessings it holds. Some of you have the gift of humor, bringing laughter at the exact moment it is needed. Now, maybe it would be hard for Marianne to quantify these gifts and add them to the silent auction, but they are incredibly valuable and desperately needed by the world. After all, too often, our society has valued a very narrow set of gifts. To oversimplify a bit, in 2022, in Acton, Boxborough, and similar places, I'd say folks tend to value those who do well in school and pursue a higher education, professionalism, i.e. white-collar jobs and high salaries, skill at sports, as well as mainstream music and theater programs, volunteering, some kind of community involvement, organization and cleanliness demonstrated in the ability to maintain nice houses and well-kept yards, and physical fitness, ideally being thin, following Western beauty standards. Now, again, I'm oversimplifying a bit, but do these sound familiar? Maybe something that's reflected in the world around you? Yeah, and let's be clear, I'm not saying any of these are problematic, just maybe a little bit narrow. In another time and place, the most highly valued gifts might include setting family as a priority, generations spending time together, or caring for neighbors, making sure they have food and shelter, or storytelling, especially passing along the stories that shape the culture, and skill with your hands, the ability to fix a motor or build a house or heal a wound. God has created a world of such incredible abundance, and yet too often it can be hard for us to see. Martin Luther King Jr. and Desmond Tutu called us to see the gifts in every human being and know that those gifts come from God. Now, for sure, they were calling on white oppressors in the US and South Africa to see the gifts in their Black and brown siblings, to see the divinity in dark skin. And somehow they also never lost sight of the fact that white people were also children of God, even when they were doing terrible, destructive, racist things. Tutu and King had many gifts, but that was one of them. The ability to speak against the broken and sinful behavior of white people while also believing in the possibility that white people could be redeemed. Now, none of us are a Martin or a Desmond. That's okay. We don't have to be. That's not our gift. But maybe your gift is writing letters to the editor, addressing concerns in our community. Or maybe your gift is singing songs that move people to tears and get them dancing for joy. Maybe your gift is speaking up at the family dinner, calling out the bias in a comment or a joke. Or maybe your gift is reading books that give you insight into lives other than your own. Maybe your gift is practicing forgiveness, releasing the pain passed down through generations. Or maybe your gift is preparing for forgiveness, like in Tutu's prayer, when it isn't time for forgiveness yet. Maybe your gift is anger, refusing to accept the status quo, or maybe your gift is compassion, understanding that everyone has work to do. Maybe your gift is seeing the gift in things other people don't value at all. Paul says that God has given us a wide variety of gifts for the good of God's kingdom in the world. So it is an act of love to embrace that variety, and it's nearly holy rebellion to celebrate a diversity of gifts. So in honor of Martin Luther King and Desmond Tutu, I invite you this morning to identify one of your gifts. You can even add it to the chat box if you're willing. And then I challenge you in the week ahead to think of one new way you can use that gift to bless God's world. Amen. As a faith community, we know the power of connecting our hearts with God's presence. So during this time, we share our joys and concerns in prayer. We invite you to type your joys and concerns into the chat box, just a reminder that out of respect for confidentiality, we don't use last names. We begin with our joys this morning, and certainly a joy is the celebration of Channing's life. Yesterday, the ability to hear stories from across his 70+ years of life and the impact that he has had on so many of us. I also want to thank everybody who helped with that service yesterday, especially people jumping in at the last minute when other folks were impacted by COVID. Ralph making sure all the technology worked, Connie helping with the reception. Huge thanks to everybody for everything they did and everybody who attended either in person or online. We know the support meant a great deal to the family. And for concerns today, I'm holding in prayer Fred, who is having yet another surgery on Friday. So prayers for healing for Fred and prayers for Linda as she continues to do amazing caregiving while also dealing with her own health issues. As we come together in prayer this morning, I invite you to continue to type your joys and concerns in that chat box that we might lift them up in prayer. And know, even if there's something you don't add, you don't need to say it out loud or put it in writing, for God to be in touch with what you're praying and for it to be part of our prayer this morning. So one more prayer this morning by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Let us pray. Oh God, all holy one, you are our mother and father, and we are your children. Open our eyes and our hearts so that we may be able to discern your work in the universe and be able to see your features in every one of your children. May we learn that there are many paths, but all lead to you. Help us to know that you have created us for family, for togetherness, for peace, for gentleness, for compassion, for caring, for sharing. May we know that you want us to care for one another as those who know they are sisters and brothers, members of the same family, our family, the human family. Help us to beat our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks, so that we may be able to live in peace and harmony, wiping away the tears from the eyes of those who are less fortunate than ourselves. And may we know war no more, as we strive to be what you want us to be, your children. Amen. Thinking about a couple things that I should touch base on today. One is next week after worship is our congregational budget meeting It will be on Zoom after worship, so we invite you to put that in your calendar and plan on attending then. And also, one joy I forgot was that there was a mission move yesterday coordinated by Kelly. So in that terrible cold yesterday, a group of folks worked hard to help a woman move into her new home. So huge thanks to Kelly and everyone involved with that mission move yesterday, and of course, this ongoing ministry. Now, there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are varieties of services, but the same Lord. To one is given the spirit of the writing of checks to support the payment to the one called Littleton Electric. To another is given the gift of card writing, sending prayer through the mail. To another is given the gift of text to give for the purchase of a license for the streaming of hymns. To another is given various kinds of emails to provide the miracle of organizing and planning. To another is given planned giving, that in a far-off future, a gift will be received. All these are activated by one and the same Spirit who sees your generosity and calls it a blessing. The one who is the Zoom deacon will paste in that which is the chat box information about giving and pledging. Our closing hymn is "We Shall Overcome." Once more, we can sing from home. Amen. Friends, your discussion question today is, what gift do you have to help heal the world? What gift do you have to help heal the world? And after the postlude, we will unmute and be able to visit with each other. But huge thanks to Joe for being in the sanctuary with us today. So we've got Joe in two ways today. We've had him both recorded in the video and playing live, and so grateful for his musical gifts and his time and dedication. Beloved, go forth with this blessing and benediction from Martin Luther King Jr. Lord, we thank you for your church, founded upon your word, that challenges us to do more than sing and pray, but go out and work as though the very answer to our prayers depended upon us and not upon you. Help us to realize that humanity was created to shine like the stars and live on through all eternity. Keep us, we pray, in perfect peace. Help us to walk together, pray together, sing together, and live together until that day when all God's children, black, white, red, brown, and yellow, will rejoice in one common band of humanity. In the reign of our Lord and of our God, we pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you, Joe.